Hello, and welcome to Real Tea Podcast, where we talk about all the real estate craziness. I'm your host, Benjamin Maynard.
And I'm your co-host, Ted Bogert.
How are you on this lovely, beautiful fall day?
It's gorgeous out, right? I am great.
Yes.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little tired.
You just got back from traveling.
I did, yeah.
To a wedding?
Yeah, it was a big wedding, which, it's always nice to get a little break, especially this time of year. Beautiful wedding. Shout out to my friends Justin and Mike on their nuptials.
Congratulations.
So big family. Justin has I don't know. It's an Italian family.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I
good
heard
old
something
Italian
like
family.
9 or 10 siblings with
Wow.
his dad. Like his
Wow.
dad has 10 siblings or something. It's crazy, but good for them. It was a beautiful family.
You said the
beautiful
food was
family.
amazing.
Yeah, the filet I cut it like butter. It was great. Super amazing. But yeah.
And
It's-
you're back.
Yeah, I am. It's it's that time of year where, you start feeling the end of the year blues, as I call them, a little bit of burnout fatigue, I think. It's the end of the year, everybody's rushing, trying to get those last deals in, and
Yes.
it's a lot. How do you balance it?
It's interesting. I talk about this a lot. I think last quarter you can make choices. You can either take it easy, which in the old days, realtors used to really slow down.
Yeah.
I think this is the time where you have to do a lot of your work so that you're ready to go in 2026, whether it's business planning. A lot of realtors and real estate professionals, even lenders, we slow down
Yeah.
purposefully. Like I had somebody go, well, I don't really do much from October 1st till beginning of January. And I said to her, well, how are you going to have any deals then in January? Oh, I'll deal with that. My first quarter won't be as good. So it's a choice,
Yeah.
I think. I understand the burnout. It's been a crazy year, right?
Yeah, I feel like this year it's been a lot worse, just in the sense that, everybody's stressed. Somebody mentioned the other day, they're like, I used to do 8 deals a year and I've only done 2 this year. And I'm like, well, that's 2 more than some agents have done.
Correct, because the national average is bad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's terrible.
I think that the rates, I just had a conversation about this. The rates have come down. We're below 6.5,
Woo!
which is great. And I think it was 6.2 this morning, or right around the time, whenever we're broadcasting this, it'll be right there. October 29th, they're doing another Fed meeting, which they expect another rate cut.
I hope so.
And so I think the rates I feel the rates are coming down. There's more activity right now for me, but I'm working it.
So you've mentioned in the past to me, because you want to talk lending stuff, you go to this guy, because I don't. I can know the basics, but understanding rates and everything like that, it's always a challenge for me. I don't know why, but I asked you many months ago. I was like, Ted, they keep cutting the rate. I'm like, but mortgage rates are still up there. So the Fed is a little different than the mortgage rate industry, I believe.
Yeah. So the Fed rate's different. The cut on the Fed rate doesn't guarantee a rate cut. As a matter of fact, a lot of times when the Fed's cut rate, the immediate action is you'll see a little uptick in the rate, but overall you should see a decrease. What they're trying to do is bring it down, so brings more buyers into the fold. There are more buyers coming in now because, as I think, I can't remember the stat, but it's for every X amount percentage cut, you'll have another 100,000 plus buyers come in, or maybe it's even larger than that. So the rate cuts are very important, but you have to follow. Just because the Fed cuts doesn't mean it's going to be an immediate cut for you. But it does mean that that's where we're trending. So if you have been on the fence, I feel like people who have been sitting on the fence all year, waiting for it to go below 6.5, you're really missing out on an opportunity if you don't get ahead of the game, because once it takes the turn, then we're going to be back to multiple offers, and you're going to be in a market where the seller has a little bit more of the control than you do right now.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing. I feel like burnout. I want to talk a little bit about burnout, though. I think burnout is real, But I also think it's a matter of doing a whole bunch of the same thing over and over again and wondering why it's not working for you.
It's the definition of insanity.
Correct. And I think a lot of people are burnt out because they're not trying new things. They've given up on certain things. They're not working their sphere. They're not working their database. And I really believe that if they would change that up a bit, that they would see an uptick in their business.
Yeah. And, end of the year is always recruitment time for not just me, but all real estate companies because, it's the end of the year. Everybody's kind of like, it's been a long year with my brokerage. They didn't give me this. They didn't give me that. And so
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
So is this the time of year where people really want to talk about moving?
Yeah, I think it kind of stems from the old industry when caps used to reset in January, but now there's so many like different companies out there that the caps will reset on your anniversary date, which is what we do.
Right.
So, if they're coming after our agents, another company, then they might not want to jump right now because maybe their cap just reset last month. And then, but in the standard like brokerage model, the old style used to be January. So that's why the end of the year was always like
understood.
But, most people run January to January on their funds, like management and everything. So, it's the end of the year. So everybody's looking at how they did this year. They're getting ready for tax season and, in January and all this stuff and trying to get their stuff together. And that's when they're really evaluating what they have in the bank and stuff. And
what's your feel? I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours. What's your feeling about how agents are feeling overall about their brokerages?
So, I talk to, it's different. It just depends on the agent. Obviously, the ones that are still performing in this industry, they're still out there doing it and they're not really looking to move. It's harder to get those types of agents,
Sure.
But the agents that are struggling this year, and this, speaking of burnout, this is what I've noticed in a lot of my like calls and like conversations that I've had with people is that the COVID agents are the ones that are feeling this right now.
Yeah.
Because they were like, I'm home, I'm going to take the real estate school online, and then they passed the test, and then 2021 they started into the industry, and it blew up, and it was like hotcakes, like flying off the griddle, like oh, here's a buyer, here's a buyer, here's a buyer, and it's and so now they're like, well, how do I get a buyer? Correct. And so in the conversations I'm having, there's people that the COVID agents are just completely burned out this year because they were so busy and so used to just clients coming to them that they don't know where to go from here, and they don't want to work those programs that the brokerages do have.
Correct. And
the trainings that are out there because they're like, well, I'm a seasoned agent now. Well, respectfully, did you ever do the back training for like how to really utilize a CRM? If you don't want to use your brokerage's CRM, whatever, go get something, because
Correct.
that constant contact, I'm not plugging them, but the constant contact with
But if
clients,
you want to sponsor the show,
if you want to sponsor it, yeah, we're available. Let us know. We're always looking for sponsors. But yeah, if you lose that contact with your clients, don't message them every month going, oh, hey, you ready to sell your house yet? They just bought last year. It's not about that. It's about, creating those newsletters, giving those happy birthday or like holiday cards or, something like that is a nice touch to keep them in your mind, because, maybe you just sold to your friend Becky and, Peggy's about to sell her house,
Right.
and Becky's going to, offer you up to say, hey, this agent worked for me and they were great. And so, I'm seeing a lot of COVID agents struggling, and I think they're the most burnout this year. Not all of them now. I'm not criticizing all COVID agents. Some of them are still out there working.
It's not even a criticism. It's just an observation.
Yeah, but they're like, well, what does your brokerage offer? Like, I need leads. And you know how I feel about like,
oh God,
somebody that's just looking for leads. I love you all, but you've got to work. You got to work the system. You got to work your sphere, and you got to know your value. So
Correct.
all of that stuff is so important to not burn out. That's with me. Like, I'm managing agents now, and I'm, managing a life, and I'm managing my own real estate clients that I have. And so, how do you get burnt, like keep from getting burned out? And so what I do is I set a boundary up front with my clients.
Tell me about the boundary, because that's always something that we talk about, but a lot of agents say it, but they don't
Yeah.
really do it.
So one of the biggest things is I sit down with them and I say, look, I will go above and beyond for you as much as I can, but I also have to be able to, live my life. So if you call me after 8 p.m. and it's not an emergency, send me a text and just say, hey, I'm having an issue with this contract. Obviously, if it's urgent, I will be like, yeah, let's address
Sure.
it. But if you're like, I don't like the color of this house, I don't know if I want to buy it, let's talk tomorrow.
What?
Because it's happened. So trying to have that balance with clients, but still be there for them, because like, me, I go out of my way constantly.
You
for
always do.
agents, clients, everybody. And I want to make sure that, I'm taking care of my people, and everybody that comes into my life, I treat like family.
Yes, you do.
And so, that's how I am with my clients, how I am with my agents. I've had agents call me at 10:30 before and be like, I'm sorry I didn't text you at 6 to let you know I was preparing a contract tonight, but I have to get it in by midnight. I understand. I've been there. I've been
Sure you
an agent where I'm struggling with contracts and stuff, but that's what I pride my business on. So like I have to be able to do that. Thankfully, those 10:30 calls don't happen as much as they used to.
Right.
But definitely having to balance this year was a lot better. So I'm not necessarily burnt out. I think I'm just, it's been a long year with the politics and with the changing industry and everything else. It rolls downhill, right? So if it affects
I
one
agree.
thing, it affects another, and then another, and then another.
I think that's what's impacting the market overall.
Yeah.
People are feeling incredibly uncertain, no matter what side of the fence you're on,
Mhm.
and they don't know what to believe. They're fearful of their job security, so they're a little more skeptical about making a jump into a housing market, especially if they are fearful that their particular job might be cut or their industry might be impacted by all of the changes, including tariffs and things like that. So you have a lot of uncertainty out there. Again, I don't think it matters what side of the fence. I think everybody's feeling it. When I talk to buyers, a lot of times they've been waiting for a long time because of that,
Mhm.
but they see the interest rates ticking down. And so they're putting their little toe out to really try to figure it out right now, but they're not necessarily ready. That many of them have jobs where if there is a certain cut or there is a certain impact, government jobs, as we both know, right now there's struggle. And so that could happen at any moment, at any time. And we're currently in the middle of a shutdown. So it's very, people feel uneasy and distrustful of the market. And you can feel that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the shutdown has definitely affected me, obviously, because my husband works for the government.
Right.
And so, we're feeling the effects of that. Thankfully, he's still employed. He's still getting paid, like all that stuff.
Excellent.
But, there are families out there that are not. And
Correct.
there's a lot of families that are wondering how they're going to pay their bills and everything.
Correct.
And so, I've had a few call me that are like selling their house. And they're like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, keep it on the market.
I had one this morning. They wanted my help because I do a lot of help with the listings too, not just obviously I work with the realtor as a whole, as a partner. And there's a particular listing that they have to, one of the spouses lost their job and they currently don't have any income coming in, and they have to get rid of they have to sell the house. So it's not even it's like I have to figure out what to do to sell this house now. I think we're going to see a little bit more of that. Especially with the layoffs and the way the industries have been impacted.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of agents right now, because they're in shutdown mode, they're missing out on an opportunity to work with people.
Yeah.
And I get that we're tired, but this is when pushing through and really setting the boundaries, but being able to really address people and go back and do the things. If you're slow and you're feeling like you're slow and you feel like you're burnt out, you just don't want to shut down completely. I have agents that have told me, I'm not doing anything till January, Ted. I don't understand that whole thought process. I don't understand how you live or plan. I want to encourage agents who are feeling burnt out this is where you revisit your database, the things that you can be passive about that will continue to that you can build on, that will help you have a more successful January and first quarter. So don't just shut down and go to all Christmas parties or holiday parties. Listen, I'm a big proponent of that. But you still have to work your business. You can't just shut it off.
Well, and I mean, there's also some aspect of what clients you're taking on.
Correct.
I see this every day. I see people, people are like, well, I need the money. I need the money. And I'll give you an example. Like recently, I had a client reach out to me for, I had just closed a house for someone in the neighborhood, and apparently they looked it up and they saw my name, and so they called me, which is very nice.
Awesome.
I was like, oh, cool. Because I don't do mailers and all that stuff, because I focus more on the business, and I work with my little network that I have when people want to buy and sell, or if there's a friend of somebody, I'll always take them on. But I focus so much on the business. But this lady called me, and I know that neighborhood very well. I love it. It's in the Metro West area. I know some people are like, "Oh, Metro West." I love Metro West. I think it's a fun.
It's a great neighborhood.
And the houses, me, architecture nerd. The houses, the layouts. There's like courtyard pools and stuff like that.
Right.
It's kind of crazy. Very South Florida vibe, I feel like, but in Orlando, which you don't see too often. But it was a fun house. But the client or customer, I guess, because they weren't my client technically yet, but they reached out to me, and I was like, yeah, sure. Let me run some numbers. Like I said, I know the area very well, and I ran a CMA and I sent it to her, and I was like, here's some videos, examples of like what we do. We're not like the I can't say his name on here, but the one agent that has like 50 people under him that does like amazing videos and like knows all about Orlando and all that stuff. But I'm not that. Right. But we do video tours for TikTok and like all the other socials and everything. And so I sent her some of those, and she responds with a video and a link that was like a 30-minute video, but it was for like a new neighborhood that was being developed. And I was like, oh, that's great. I'm like, I love that video, but I said, your house is a different market. I'm like, that's for new build,
Right.
But I was like, what did you think about the CMA? And she kind of fired back at me and was like, I expect, this much for my house. And it kind of took me by surprise, because I was like, well, if you look at the market analysis, it says that your home, there was one home in that neighborhood that had sold for $740, and it was like luxury finishes, completely redone. It was beautiful. Her home was very similar, but it wasn't as new or updated. And she was like, well, I know it's worth $780. And I was
$780.
Like, $780. And I said, there's not anything in that neighborhood that has sold in the last year that was even close to $780. I said, maybe in a few years, if the market rebounds, sure, maybe. But it would have to rebound, which look, I'm optimistic. I think it will rebound and the home values start going up again in a few years. I think we're just in this, interest rate crisis right now. I'm an optimist, so let's hope that that's the direction it goes. But, I try and be realistic, and she wasn't really listening to what I was trying to tell her, and she was more directing. And so I'd already looked up the history beforehand. So I knew going into this that she'd had 2 other agents in the last 2 years that have tried to sell the home, and the price, the list price had changed every single time. So I was like, oh, okay. So she's, it was a client that was not listening to me. And so I respectfully declined.
Good.
And I've had agents go, well, why did you decline? Like, why didn't you go for it? And I was like, look, she'd already asked me to do it for 2%, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. I know the area and all that stuff. I was like, I can do it for 2%. Even though I typically don't go below 2.5 for like listings, because I know the amount of effort, time, and money I'm going to put into the listing. And so I know my value, and I want to make sure that I'm getting what I'm worth. And the bottom line is that I saw that this was going to be problematic because she wasn't listening to me. She wasn't reading what I was sending her so that she could look at the information herself. Look, I would love to get what clients want out of their home all day long. But in reality, we are real estate agents, and we have a duty to the public to put stuff out there that is accurate. We can't inflate prices just because we want a bigger commission or because, our clients are saying, oh, well, it's worth, I would have listed it at 780, but I had a conversation with her and said, well, we would have to drop the price a few times, go in high. Obviously, you don't want to go in at your lowest point, because you know that you're going to plan for those and you're going to plan for the lower offers that are going to come in, right? Nothing's going for list price unless you're in a desirable neighborhood and there's no inventory. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of every client and then take into account how much is this going to affect me. If it's just time for a client, like obviously that's not a problem. Like if you spend time with clients showing them 20, 30 houses, you're going to do that. But if they're not going to listen to your professional opinion on things, especially when it comes to a list price and you're that far off, if it was like 10,000 off, I would have said, okay, we can start at that, but just know that we're going to go down probably. Maybe she gets a full offer. She didn't because it's on the market and it hasn't moved.
Of course.
But maybe somebody will come along and submit an offer for 740 and she'll take it. But, I wasn't willing to put myself through that because, well, it would burn me out.
Why would like she's already telling you, this is the thing with agents. She's already telling you exactly how she's going to be as a client. So what would be the point of trying to change somebody like that?
Right.
This is the thing I do the same thing with realtors and with buyers. Look, if we are so disconnected and so far apart in the beginning, why am I going to put all of this money and effort and marketing and building and time and my resources into a relationship where we're so far apart that it's going to exhaust me, my resources and my own body and my soul and my heart to do business with you? What is the point of that? A lot of agents, a lot of lenders and a lot of agents would take that on and then regret it. I currently know many, many, many agents who are in relationships with their sellers who they just can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah.
The difficulty is, we both know what happens is that next agent comes in, gives them what they want, and eventually they realize by the second or third agent, I better move my price down. And so that agent ends up closing it at the price that you probably told them at the beginning. So it is kind of a cat and mouse game, but
then they're mad at you.
Of course they're mad at you.
They're like, well, you said that we could get this much. And,
correct. So why put your reputation that you've worked so hard for on the line just to make someone happy when you as the licensed real estate professional knows better?
Yeah. And look, if you're somebody out there that's looking to buy or sell their home, listen to your agents. And if you don't think that the agent, is where you want to be, so, oh, they're not as knowledgeable, or they're not this, or they're not that, or they're not giving me the price that I think is worth, go ask other agents. Go check in with a few agents and see what kind of, now I will say there are agents out there that go, yeah, we can get 780 for your house.
That's the problem, is consumers don't know how to maneuver through that.
Yeah.
So they have to go out. It really, honestly, if they would just listen, the problem is consumers, because information is so accessible all the time, they believe they already know. And rightfully so. They've done the research. You can plug it into chat or whatever AI you use, and you can get something out. And it could tell you what you want to hear, or you could ignore completely and still go with your own quote-unquote knowledge.
Consumers will plug it into Zillow, and they'll be like, oh, Zestimate says it's worth $7
Let's not say the Z word. No Z words.
The big blue. We'll call them the blue.
Anything,
the blue house. But,
and unfortunately, that particular type of setup has ruined consumers for immediately trusting their agent.
You know what it pulls, right? It pulls different data. So if you're in a zip code, and let's say you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,500 square foot home, but there's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 4,000 square foot home, it's still pulling that data and comparing it. And it just does like a market, like rate average, doesn't compare the statistics of the home. Not. And so that's the part that really struggles with consumers. And I go over with every consumer. I'm like, look, this market analysis report, it goes through exactly what each home closed for. That's the important part that people don't understand. If someone's paying cash, you could pay whatever you want for the house.
True.
But let's be real, most cases, people aren't paying cash. They're financing something in that deal. And so that bank is going to come to the home and send an appraiser, And the appraiser's going to come back and he's going to do the same thing that are on those market analysis reports that say what the price is and what it's worth. All day long you can say your home's worth what you think it is, or you can go with whatever the big blue house says it's worth online. But at the end of the day, those numbers are averaged out, but they're not just average. They take into account, oh, this was a 4-bedroom and we're comparing a 3-bedroom.
Right.
We're going to dock 20 grand off the price. And so you have to understand that if an agent comes to you and they're telling you that it is a lower cost than what you're suggesting, they're not saying that because they just want a quick sale.
Well, think about it. They make less money at a lower cost.
They make less money. That's what drives me nuts. Is I'm like, they're not trying to screw you out of more money. They are just simply trying to educate you on the market and what the analysis is. Because what's going to happen is if somebody comes in at, let's just say 780, and they have a loan and they're only putting 5-10% down because that's the average on what people put down, and it appraises for lower, they're not going to have enough money for the down payment and to make up that difference.
It's going to be terrible.
And so the what's going to happen is you're either going to have to go back on the market knowing it's worth less than what you think it's worth, and then or you take the appraiser and you come down on the price anyways. But the thing is that when you left it sit there for 4 months at that higher price, instead of just lowering it to that price, you wasted months.
Correct.
Where, people didn't filter into that bracket because, their limit was set at 750.
Right.
So there's these different things that consumers don't realize how the industry works, and the agents aren't always the best at explaining what they do. I have agents come to me all the time. They're like, that my client doesn't realize everything I do. I'm not just opening doors or contracts. There's so much on the back end that real estate agents do, talking to lenders and, trying to figure out like, okay, their credit wasn't the best. How do we get them to bring it down? And, they're having side conversations with lenders. They're talking to the title companies. They're talking to the appraisers. They're talking to, the listing agents, and if you're a buyer, all this stuff. And there's so much research that goes into the back end of submitting an offer on a house, that if you have a good agent, I should say, that knows what they're doing and they're trying to abide by it, there are agents out there who will go in and say, no, it's 760, and they're still like, we want to list at 780. As long as that agent says that's fine, but I'm letting you know that current market says that the value of your home indicates somewhere between 740 and 760. I always give a range. I always go about 15,000 because I don't know what that inspector is going to pull.
Sure.
It's so hard to say what, you could get an appraiser on a bad day and they're going to come in and they're not supposed to do that, but they do it.
Right.
And as long as you have done the research to have those comps that you can send to the appraiser and say, hey, did you look at these? Did you take these into consideration? And, that usually helps.
So where are all our other B's? What are other B's?
B's?
Yeah. We have somewhere there's BS.
Oh.
There's burnout. I forget what the other ones are. We have to talk about this because we said on the beginning of the show we were going to talk about all the B's.
All the B's, yeah.
Burnout. We're so bad. I know BS is one of them. Do you want to go to BS?
Burnout. Maybe we're just burnout. All the BS in real estate?
BS in real estate? Any recent BS things that you've come across?
Am I allowed? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
Well, you don't have to say names.
It's so hard.
It's all right. I mean, people will know.
I mean, we're in Orlando,
They like the tea, so let's give some BS.
I'm working on, trying to find a more preferred partners, and you meet with everyone, and they're like, oh, we do this, we do that, we do this.
Yes,
and it's but you got to find the quality ones.
True.
That you can trust, because I don't know what it is with title agencies in Orlando. Like, right, I've been licensed in DC, Virginia, Maryland, and Ohio, and then I've never had the problems that I have down here with title agencies. First of all, there's title companies out there that'll be like, in your face, like, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. And then there's other title companies that are like, you've not brought me any business. And then, you find out later that, they weren't giving their employees their retirement funds and,
Ooh, I know who we're talking about there, allegedly.
But
allegedly.
I just don't get it. Like, I've never seen so much. Maybe I was just oblivious.
Cutthroat here.
It
it's
is.
so bad here.
It's crazy.
Title companies have gotten worse over the years. It used to be back in the day when I first started, because I owned 2 title companies. So I'm familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went out and I was the rep, even as an owner for the company, it was me and about 40 other ladies with very short skirts.
Eileen? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was not. That was before. That was probably when Eileen was in the military when I did that. But I feel like now there are so many. I'll give you an example. We were at a conference, a real estate conference this Thursday and Friday.
Oh, yeah, I saw.
And there were, I would say, 8 or 9 different title companies there. And it's so hard to differentiate themselves, but the customer service, the way they treat people, MSAs, there's all sorts of crazy stuff out there with title companies. And, there's one title company in town, of course, that we all know about that has been going through a metamorphosis, I'll say, in a positive way. And I think it's fascinating how all of them seem to have there's a trick up their sleeves, most of them, but the ones that we deal with, I feel like, the ones that I've done business with, I do events with, they just want to get the customer service stuff done. And then they want to figure out how to support you as a realtor.
Yeah.
If they could just bottom line that instead of making everything about money, it would really do them a great service, because you can see what having contracts and money gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
So talk about your experience.
Well, I've had everything from, real estate coaches to title agencies.
Oh, do you want to talk about real estate
lenders.
coaches? Let this sink in real quick. No, go ahead.
Well, for example, I was at an event, and I think this was early on that I had met you, and I'd come to an event, and I had only had like 2 agents at that time. And, it wasn't a huge deal to me. It was a big deal. I was like, oh, I've got 2 agents. I'm doing great.
Oh God, you're going to tell that story.
But
Listen up.
You know where I'm going.
100%.
But I knew that I was going to grow, and I was just making connections in the industry and trying to be friendly with people, get to know them, like genuine. Like, that's how I am. I'm a genuine person.
You are.
You're not going to get fake with me. I'll just tell you how it is. And so I walked up and I was like, "Oh, hi, it's nice to meet you." They were one of the speakers there, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's so great to meet you." And they turned around and asked me for
I got the church giggles. Go ahead.
First thing that came out of them was, "How many agents do you have?"
Isn't that a fascinating, like, what difference does that make in general?
And I responded and I was like, "Oh, I've got 2." And they go, "We'll talk when you have 8." And they turned back. I shit you not. They turned back around and went back to had a conversation with somebody else. And I was like, "Oh, I'm not worth their time." Well, later on, a title company that I was trying to work with, we had like 4 listings on one street, and I was having a lunch with the rep. And the rep was like getting reprimanded on the phone during the meeting.
Oh, I also know this story.
Well, they're the same almost, because it involved the similar person.
Of course it did.
And
this is why we drink.
I'm like, it was like 1.4 million, I think, in volume, that we were wanting to have like a block party. And the agent was so busy, so I was stepping in to like help him out and like plan this. And I couldn't even, I was buying lunch, by the way. And they show up, and they were an hour and a half late. Not their fault, because they were getting grilled. And they're like, "Well, they haven't brought us any business yet. Why are you focusing in on them? And you should be meeting with our coach right now," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm sitting there at the table, like, hearing all of this. And I'm like, "Oh, they don't want my business." So I literally left, and I called St. Lawrence Title, and I was like, "Look, I'm working with you going forward." And I said, "Here's the deal." And they were delighted they welcomed the
Sure they
business,
did.
and a little shout out to them. I love St. Lawrence.
We love
But I mean, there's other real estate companies, or sorry, real estate title agencies out there that I love too. But in this situation, that was who I went to, because
Sure.
at the time, that person met me when I had no one. I was just starting. I had no one, and they were like, "You let me know if you need anything." What you did. You were like, "Oh, let's have lunch." You didn't care how many agents I had. You were just like, "Let's meet. Let's see how I can help build your business." And that's why you're like riding until the end with me, until you hit that
Absolutely.
retirement button.
Ride or die.
When you hit that retirement button, I don't know what I'm going to do. But
Thank you for that. And I think that's where a lot of people, vendors especially, mess up, because they base the relationship on a transaction rather than building the relationship. And so many of these title companies and lenders and insurance agencies,
Yeah.
all of these vendors are all about, what have you done for me lately? Or they want you to do something for them first. And I'm always about, listen, I don't get anything from listings unless I do an open house and I get a buyer. But from a listing, I get nothing. I get a ton.
Yeah.
The thinking is I get nothing. For me, I get a ton. I build a relationship. I meet other realtors. I do good for my partners. I'm actually being non-transactional and relationship driven. And I think so many of these people are either used to cutting a check, which a lot of those days are gone. There's some of the bigger lenders still cut a ton of checks, and they're paying rent all over town for people, but that's for another show. Same with title companies. It's wild to me, the money that they invest, and they forget that all of those people started somewhere. And why wouldn't you want to invest in somebody new like you? Why wouldn't you want to build a relationship? I'm amazed at the fact that so many of these reps don't even know how to build a relationship.
I mean, there's one rep out there that's like actively advising people to not join my brokerage, and then actively tries to get me to like do stuff with them. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, I know, because people tell me, like, I know I'm newer.
Oh, it's a small town.
But I'm like, people tell me, they're like, oh yeah, this person advised me not to join. Which I'm like, okay, well, if you want to believe them, fine. I know who I am. I know at the end of the day, I'm dedicated. And I mean, it's not the first time I've heard it, but that's the vendors don't take me seriously. Real estate agents too. Like that really, one of them came up to my partner and just flat out told him at an event, they were like, "Oh, I didn't think he was intelligent. You're clearly like the brains behind it and everything." And
I also happen to know who we're talking about here as well.
Well, it's because I tell you everything. Edward just looks at the person and goes, "No, actually, I'm like the crazy idea person, and he's the one that like reins me in." And he's a logistical like person, and he thinks about the long-term business and how to be more like better for agents in the community and everything. And and it's an uphill battle with how young I look.
The jacket, I must say, I was going to compliment you on that. The jacket makes a difference.
I know.
It's so funny to me because when you put it on, you look older.
I know, but I'm such like a shorts and t-shirt person.
I know.
Because I'm not like, even if I had like millions of dollars, I'd still live in the same house.
But you have a nice blue blazer on.
The pants.
Listen, people should just want to have a relationship with you, and that's Amazon. That's the thing. I think I'm up against a lot of lenders all the time, and a lot of times, if it's a realtor who is used to being pampered or babied, which is fine, the first question to them is, "Well, are you going?" And we know one of these realtors. Are you going to pay for my, I don't know, XYZ? I mean, I had somebody once ask me to pay a car payment. I've had people ask me to pay a utility bill, which is a strange little world we're living in if I'm helping with the utility bill, but whatever. I've had people ask me how much of my commission that I'm going to pay them, which of course is a violation. It's a weird world out there. The agents that I want to work with are relationship oriented. Yeah. So I have had to fire. I'm in a big blocking and unfriending mode right now, which I know I hate when people go on and say, I'm just going to block everybody. I just quietly block, like quiet quitting a couple years ago. I quietly block and I just block. And I notice that people will come up to me and that I've blocked and say, I haven't seen anything of yours lately, Ted. Duh. I mean, the reason you haven't seen it is you're blocked on all platforms. Why? Because you talk ish about me. Yeah. You aren't loyal to any of the people that you're trying to get business from that I do business with, and then you want to pretend to be my friend at events. I have no time for that. None whatsoever. So that's the bullshit.
Yeah.
We're talking.
I mean, it's constant and it won't stop. I mean, I tell you all the time about like agents that turn me down because I look young. I'm like, whatever. Go spend your $20,000 a year on your brokerage, and
I don't understand that. If I were an agent, I wouldn't be looking at how young someone looks.
Right.
I'd be looking at what they offer and compare it to the things that I've already interviewed other brokerages.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some brokerages out there that have a high cap like that, and they do everything for their agents, and that's great. I'm not saying that like just because I have a low cap, I'm the best. But I'm saying like I see them looking to switch, and the reason they don't is because of how young I look.
Well, one of the people that
I'm 35, by the way.
We're gonna do exactly since we're gonna do a little bit of not gossip. T is one of the people that went with another brokerage that made that comment to your husband.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. You could track that. I can say it out loud.
Well,
they're doing nothing. The interesting thing is they wanted to be part of an in crowd, and once they got in it, they realized all of these people were out of their league. They also felt like their product and their persona was worth more, which I'm all about confidence, but not arrogance.
Yeah.
So,
the more I learned about that person too, I found out that they were playing other people, and so they were shocked,
crazy
to hear that they were a real estate agent.
Edward's like crazy, and he's 1,000. You're 1,000% right. Yeah, but we have to try to figure out how to maneuver through those people, and I think we do a good job of recognizing it up front. And if we don't, it doesn't take that long. Like I used to be when I was much younger, I would let it go on and on and on, and I get the crap beat out of me, and I would be just in a bad position. And now that I'm old and cantankerous and grumpy and drink more most days than most people do, I'm like, I have no desire whatsoever to do business with you. Why? Because you're just going to suck the life out of me, and you're going to eventually we're going to part ways because I'm not cutting a check to you.
And that's burnout, balance, and BS. I got it.
That's
balance.
it.
That's it. Balance.
Burnout, balance, and BS.
We remembered. But yeah, I mean, all of those different things, like they kind of all mold together, right? The BS in the real estate industry, whether it be vendors or agents or clients, and the list is never ending, and it's always a challenge to me to like try and express these things to an agent who is burnt out and who's dealing with a lot of this BS. My advice to people is to push on, look at your value, and look at the time and energy that things are going to, how they're going to affect you, and what the gain is. If there's not a lot of gain that is going to come out of this, don't put it in your wheelhouse.
You shouldn't. I had somebody recently use the words mediocre when they described me.
Oh.
So besides giving them the proverbial middle finger, actually it was the real middle finger, I thought, oh my God, Stevie Wonder could tell you that I'm not mediocre. I am not mediocre.
Look at your suit. Look at those shoes.
I mean, look at the shoes. You can't see those right now. But that was a projection, 100% a projection. A lot of times I think that we allow people's self-doubt to come across, and they hit us with it. And that is just, again, bullshit. It's ridiculousness. When I'm coaching, I'm always talking to people about know your value. And when you know your value, that stuff tends to bounce off you. And the more that you understand your value and your worth and what you bring to the table, the less those people can get into your inner circle.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, this is fine. You got any last minute tea?
No, listen, you guys, don't give up this last quarter.
No.
Don't do it. Work it. Find your vendors and make them work with you. Work your sphere. Get out there. Do open houses. Do brokers opens. I don't care if no one shows up. It's all about getting that word out there. You guys have to continue to do the work. Don't give up. You can still go to all the Christmas parties like I do. You can still go to all the holiday parties, all the galas, and you can still get the work in and have a good January and first quarter.
Yeah, and our invites are going out soon for the Christmas
party.
I
can't wait.
Check your inbox
Amazing
soon.
Party.
So, yeah. But this has been a great session.
Yay, a great session.
I very much enjoyed it. Hold on.
Cheers. Do we get to cheers?
Yeah, we're going to cheers today. This has been Real to You. I'm Benjamin Maynard.
And I'm Ted Bogert.
Have a great one.
Have a great one.